So let's have a look at Seymour this morning on breakfast. He was talking to John Jay, and they were talking a little bit about tino rangatiratanga and also who is writing this bill that you're talking to us so much about.
What's your definition of tino rangatiratanga? What does it mean?
Well, it's self-determination. It's something that ACT actually really lives for, the idea that each of us have chances and choices in life and should be able to choose for ourselves where we go, because we believe that this country, like any other, can only flourish when each individual has the opportunity to flourish in their own way.
So will that phrase now be explicitly in the Treaty Principles Bill?
The thing is, well, that they're not getting at this. Now, I'm no treaty expert, but tino rangatiratanga about self-determination, that's part of the whole argument that means Māori have self-determination. They didn't cede sovereignty. They have tino rangatiratanga, and he's just said tino rangatira is self-determination. So is he confirming it? Paula helps out. Paula always helps out. He misses the point on the rangatiratanga bit. It ain't individual. What a worse individualism, dude. What a worse human this shit is. So collective self-determination.
Yeah. Well, that depends on how the drafters come back. I mean, they're the experts in how you express something in law. So as far as an explicit phrase, what will it look like? That's those guys' job. My job is to set the intention of it, and that idea that each of us should have the chance and the choice to self-express and be the best person we can be. That I expect will be.
Okay.
That, for example, is what I see.
Who is phrase guy? Who's writing it? Who is phrase guy?
You got to give him at least a bit of kudos for John Campbell in a serious interview using the word phrase guy. I mean, who is phrase guy? I get your point, John.
So the government has an outfit called the Parliamentary Council Office.
So it's got. So sorry, it's got. So it's with them now. Is it with them now?
Well, it was decided yesterday to send it to them. It will be very soon.
Okay. Did you watch Postcab yesterday? Watch the Prime Minister in Postcab?
That's the next question. We didn't go into that. So yeah, interesting. Someone in the chat I saw scroll past saying, yes, he did, Pat. He did just confirm Māori didn't see sovereignty by explaining what tino rangatiratanga is. Any thoughts around that first little clip? I got two. They're all quite short, so don't panic. I see people going, do we have to listen to Seymour? They're all quite short, and it's it's important to know what the others are saying for you to get your arguments ready to push back. Shall we?
I'm pretty sure I can post all of these clips of Seymour successfully in a great Reddit subreddit called Confidently Wrong.
Right.
He's always so confident and it's so smug from his position that is just built on a pile of dog shit. Like he's wrong. He's wrong on this. He's wrong on what tino rangatiratanga means. He's wrong. Just that's it. Just bigger letters.
Self-determination of the Māori culture and traditions, independent of colonial governance.
Do they have that? Do Māori have that? Have they famously had that since the treaty was signed? Fucking no, would be the answer. Like I mean, this is the whole thing. Like, if Māori were constantly at the top of all the negative stats, poor healthcare outcomes, poor outcomes in interactions with the police and the judiciary, most incarcerated people, all of that sort of stuff, and they had full self-determination, you could sit there and go, well, their fault. But they don't. They're operating in a framework that they have very little say in because they're outvoted at every step for 150 years.
Yeah. Peter wanted to make sure we knew. Peter wanted to make sure we knew that it's actually confidently incorrect on Reddit.
I
just in case.
I doff
my cap, sir.
I was very confident I had it right, and I was in fact incorrect.
All right, next part of the conversation, Seymour. I find this actually quite scary. As Maya Angelou say, when someone tells you who they are the first time, believe them. Seymour is telling us again and again and again and again and again that he can flip Luxon. Now, I know most people kind of go, it's not going to happen. Luxon's going to not support it, yada, yada, yada. But Luxon is a weak leader. And I think, as you often say, Chewy, they've been dog walking him. So when Seymour, with the world's best freeze frame, says so confidently, I think he can change their mind. It's really, I find it to be concerning. I find it to be concerning. Let's have a listen.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, people say that they won't support it, but no one's actually read the bill yet. As we're discussing, it doesn't exist. And no one's seen the response of the public.
So if no one's seen the bill yet, that goes both ways. That means Luxon might see it and go, oh, I like that, which is another reason we can't trust Luxon, which I think is kind of actually what he's about to say in another fantastic freeze frame.
Always thought it's important to try and keep open mind about that and wait to see what people say. But the second point is, let's just imagine for a moment that you're right and that all that's going to happen, a bill will be drafted that articulates the treaty as a document that unites us all with equal rights. It goes to Parliament, it's debated there, it goes to select committee, people can have a say. Then whatever happens after that, we've introduced the idea that each of us have a right to participate and a say over what our founding document means and what our constitutional future is. And
he says it so bluntly, we've all got the right to have a say in the founding document. Like, it's be a good thing that actually, and I know that some people are going to push back against what I say this, but, you know, I often think about this. I mean, the previous guest talked about this being a covenant. We talk about it being a contract law. And if you talk about it as a contract, no, not everyone's got the say in my contract with my bank. Sorry, the signatories have a say, not everybody. And he's basically going, well, if it fails, at least it'll carry enough division that people will be talking like they've got a right to push into a document that two parties signed. So he's saying that like that's a good thing. And look, I didn't ask Alistair this, but I was thinking it as we were doing it. You know, we've even heard Chloe say things like, yes, let's have a conversation around this. No, this is not the way to do it. So if this evolved into a conversation that was healthy and was worth something, you know, maybe, but it's not the way that he's setting it up. I think what Chloe always says is you don't have that by having a binary outcome. Yes, no, we don't. That's not the way to have this conversation. Anything, Chewy?
Also, he says, let's let everybody have a conversation into our founding document. That's great. Anyone can have a conversation. Anyone can say whatever the fuck they want. Only some people will have the knowledge and the maturity to provide anything of value.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that just opening the gates, we know, because you could look at any comment section you like on any story that is published about Māori, and you will see some of the people that want to have their say on the treaty. And I'm sorry, I'll be real blunt here. You don't know what you're talking about. We don't need to hear from you. You can keep venting your spleen in the Herald comment section until you eventually get that comment section shut down again. Because you're stupid.
By the social media team. That's where you give them the kudos, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't shake the feeling that Seymour knows that this is a dead dog. He is never going to get this through the select committee process. That's not his aim. He is an Atlas plant, and everywhere the Atlas touch, they kick off the division in society between the colonial people and the indigenous people. That is why he, like it's in the news now, he wants this to go through the full 6-month select committee process where people can have their say. That is an enormous amount of very motivated, very toxic people venting their poisonous thoughts on the indigenous people of this country. And people like us and people like the chat need to be just as fucking motivated and strong-willed to push back against what he wants to open up.
All right. So now we're going to get to the same part of the conversation where he basically says he thinks he can turn Luxon, which in another context sounds a bit dodgy, but you know what I'm saying.
country that now has many strands, people from all over the world calling it home. I think it's critical that each of us actually lives in a country where we have the ability to do that. And I think once that discussion is started, it's going to be hard to say, no, we're going to go back to a world where unless you're an expert, which is rarely actually explained what that means, or unless you have the right view.
Expert means has the qualifications or the experience to speak into thing. Like if you had brain surgery, you see the expert has been through the right schooling, they've done the other schooling, they've been trained in a hospital, they've gone through the system of being a hospital to be the senior doctor. That's what an expert is. You can see a train or a record of why they're now considered. The other thing about an expert is an expert needs to be considered to be an expert within society. Looking on the lawn of Parliament a couple of summers ago, people were pointing at people within that group of people protesting, saying they're experts. No. You have to be identified as and accepted as an expert to be an expert. Sorry if that sounds a bit elitist, but it's true. Like, we can all be experts in our own minds. Expertise comes from experience and training, comes from a worldview, comes from qualifications and job. That's what it means to be an expert, Seymour. So don't play this stupid fucking game like, well, whatever that means. That's what it means.
The other thing I want to point out here, because you saw a little snap of it. This is a great freeze frame, and I'm going to talk for hours just so I can sit here. This little tactic that he's got of basically speaking to immigrants to New Zealand.
Yeah.
And he wants them on his side. He wants them to see that Māori have these special rights that they will never have. And he is hoping that they will not have the knowledge on the treaty or the understanding of the treaty, because they haven't been in this country very long, to agree with him.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to educate wherever we can.
Yeah. And it's really important as well, if you're in one of those communities and you're watching and listening, if you've got an inroad into that community, it's really important, because, if let's say that English is your second language and you're in the community and you're in New Zealand now, nice, shiny looking man in a big suit saying he wants to make you feel really welcome to this country. It sounds like an appealing sort of a message. If you're in those communities, if you have access to those communities, it's really important that you actually share what's going on, because, the best kind of, to come back to another religious term, but the best kind of evangelizing to convince someone of an idea is to do it through friends and family. That's the most effective way of doing it. And so it's good for you to know that. All right, we're going to go for a third time on this clip, see if we can get to the end,
And which is rarely actually explained what that means, or unless you have the right view, then you can't discuss this. And that is the real exercise here.
I just want to go back to what you said at the beginning of that. Do you still hold out some hope that the Prime Minister, who has repeatedly said he won't, will support this beyond first reading, beyond select committee? Do you still think that's a possibility?
Well, I hate to be finicky, but the government doesn't actually have a position. So the Prime Minister,
the National Party, the National Party. Would you like? I mean, I can quote you what he said again yesterday. I've got lots of those quotes.
Oh, I've seen what he said. We've said it to each other in private and in public. But I just make the point that at this point, no one's actually read the bill. No one's actually seen the submissions to the select committee. No one's seen
It's actually another point, isn't it? Why the fuck has he not got the bill out yet? Why is he leaving it for so long? I mean, we've been talking about this since October, November of last year. Is there actually a reason, a plan and a purpose as to why this is so long before it comes out? Is he allowing sort of the division to fester and foment? And then when he presents, is he doing what universities used to do when I was at school? And they'd go 15% increase on fees next year. And everyone would go, no. And they'd come back and go, okay, it's only going to be 10%. And the people who weren't aware of what they were doing would go, yay. And we'd all go, that's still 10%, guys. They've just fooled you. It's a bit of a shell game here. Is that what he's doing? Is he just basically making everyone fight over nothing, get into a rage, and then when it's presented, it almost doesn't matter what he says. You've already got the sides picked. Is that what it's about?
I think in a way, like he knows he's not going to get this across the board. There's no fucking way. Like he doesn't have the numbers for this. So that's not the aim. The goal for this is division.
Yeah.
The goal for this is to enable that incredibly toxic discussion to happen without experts, because we'll chip away at their expertise. You know, who decides what an expert is? You know, all of this sort of stuff. They're going to minimize those guys' opinions, and that's lawyers and scholars and people that have studied the treaty.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
why do we need to know about that when fucking Barry the mechanic from Gore doesn't understand, you know, what a treaty settlement is? We need to hear from him.
You don't get too hard on Barry. He's not a bad guy. You know what it is though? It's Trumpian. Trump's been saying
he's a good mechanic. He's a bad treaty scholar,
fair,
and you
fair.
fucking know it.
Fair. This is Trumpian. You know, Trump for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks has been talking about tomorrow's debate and how unfair it's going to be, and he's been talking about how it's rigged and how the hosts are going to be bad to him, and he's calling Stephanopoulos Slopodopoulos, and he's now going to go into that, and I think may well get smashed. We'll talk about this after, actually, not interrupt this clip. And then he's able to actually come back and go, see, I told you, unfair. I didn't lose, unfair, but the same. He's able to then go back and say, yep, see, all right, I promise this time, 35 seconds to go.
Sorry,
can you answer my question? It's a very explicit question, a very specific question. Do you still hold out some hope that Christopher Luxon and the National Party, who said yesterday, again, our position is really clear, we are supporting it to first reading, but not beyond that, do you still hold out some hope that he will support it beyond that?
Oh well, if you want a one-word answer, yes. I was just giving you some of the reasons why.
There you go. There's the next clip. Now we've talked all the way through that, so we might have said all we need to say. Is there anything else you want to add about that? We've got one more to go, which is actually quite a good. John Campbell kind of nails me a bit in the last clip.
No, I've got nothing to add.
Roll on, McDuff. So this is actually, it's interesting because I don't talk about Hawke's Bay. Hawke's Bay is what's just happened, and maybe we'll just intercede these two stories together a little bit. Is it that one there? There we go. So this is the story. I actually thought this would be in the news tonight, but it wasn't. I didn't see it in the news. Māori and Pacific young people dropped from list eligible for free GP visits in Hawke's Bay. Māori and Pacific young people in Hawke's Bay are no longer eligible for free GP and nurse visits based on ethnicity after the health minister intervened. So he had to actually come out and actively do something. It wasn't like, oh, it ran out of funding. He actually had to put himself in the middle of this and actually do something about it, which he did. The move has been labelled devastating for the community by one MP. Over the weekend, Stuff reported on a recent change to funding for free GP and registered nurse visits in Hawke's Bay for rangatahi, aged 14 to 24, instead of being available for all young people in the region. New criteria were introduced from September the 1st, making Māori and Pacific those living in high deprivation, those who hold a community services card, or those with specific long-term health conditions eligible. But this has again changed, with the Māori and Pacific criteria now dropped from the list after Health Minister Dr. Shane Reti spoke with health officials about the policy on Monday. Now people in this age group with the greatest healthcare needs will be prioritised, Health New Zealand says, and able to access these services free if they were a list of things. And there was a part of this as well, which basically he did actually say, here we go. A spokesman from Reti's office told Stuff that the minister strongly communicated back to Health New Zealand. So this is the other thing. We keep getting told by people like the Prime Minister, oh, that's up to the chief executive. Although we don't intervene, that's up to the chief executive. Until something happens that they don't like, and chewy, then they intervene. It's kind of it's ironic, that, isn't it? So he made
it's all bullshit, Pat.
Almost like it. The criteria were, quote, not consistent with government policy, and certainly not consistent with his government's policy statement on health. Other quotes have him saying it doesn't fit in with the coalition agreement as well. So the reason I bring that up, it's almost one of those stories done as quickly as that, is it comes up in this conversation, but it comes up as Seymour trying to score points, and John Jay makes a very good retort to it. And actually, I think, not that this is an argument, but if it was, sort of wins the argument.
Can we go to what problem you think is being addressed?
It's a great question, by the way. It's a great question.
We like
so in what way are non-Māori impacted or disadvantaged on a daily lived basis by te tiriti?
Well, I'll give you one example. In Hawke's Bay just this week, the local health authority decided to end free doctors' visits, unless, of course, you were Māori or Pacific, for people at a certain age.
Okay, let's pick up on that. So let's pick up on health. Māori life expectancy 7 years shorter than non-Māori. Is it perverse and almost cruel to represent that as some form of advantage?
So Seymour doesn't quite get this. So John's basically saying 7 years, they die 7 years younger. Therefore, it's fairly obvious they need more help within the health system. Therefore, taking away this health is basically discounting the idea that it's a problem that they die 7 years younger. I'll go back to it and give it a bit more time. So he sees it better than me.
Let's pick up on that. So let's pick up on health. Māori life expectancy 7 years shorter than non-Māori. Is it perverse and almost cruel to represent that as some form of advantage?
Well, I haven't represented that as some sort of advantage, but let's have that discussion.
It felt like you were doing it just then.
It is.
So in other words, because you die 7 years sooner, you get an advantage to go to the health system. So therefore, dying sooner means you have an advantage to go and get free healthcare when you're a child. And Seymour saying that's an advantage that Māori have, that they die 7 years sooner. That's the logical conclusion.
Advantage, but let's have that
It felt
discussion.
like you were doing it just then.
It is. I beg your pardon?
It felt like you were doing it just then.
Well, absolutely not. I referred to the access to medical care, and I'd make the point that while it's certainly true that if you group all Māori people together and if you group all non-Māori people together, then you can produce the statistic that non-Māori live 7 years longer. That is true. However, my question is why your lens for grouping people in the first place was their ethnicity. You may have...
Because that's where the need is. This is this consistent thing we talk about. You're happy to group, let's say, infants with vaccines because they're the ones who get them and need them. You're happy to group females with breast cancer or males with prostate cancer. You're happy to group all these people together because there is a need within that group. When the need within the group is a race, all of a sudden you go, no, can't group them like that. Can't group them like that. But the reason they group them like that is statistically that shows that there is a need there. And he's kind of going, why would we even do it by race? Because it's proven that there's a need there. Just because you don't like it and you think in your warped little mind that it means there is an unfairness that these people die. It's unfair to group Māori and give them some health privileges or health access that we don't get because they die 7 years sooner. So therefore, let's take that access away. And it means you can just die 7 years sooner. It's his thinking is scrambled, Chewy. Do you want to say anything before I push play?
Yes, absolutely. We never try anything different.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time we try and target something, we might get 3, 4, maybe 8 years. Not really enough to shift the needle. We've had hundreds of years of our supposedly free and fair health system. We've had over 100 years of our apparently colorblind judicial system. Same with education. So when someone like Seymour says that's fine, that's how it should be, we're going to look at need and we're going to be colorblind, but we still have these issues. He's almost saying it's I'm just going to come out and say it. Māori are just inferior. That's why they don't live as long. That's why they're not as smart. That's why they're prone to criminality. That's what's behind this white supremacist message that he will come. He'll talk about fairness and equality. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit, and he knows it. Like we don't hear it. It's like that quote from The Simpsons: "We've tried nothing, and we're all out of ideas."
Mark has got just basically packaged what I stumbled over for 3 minutes and made the exact example. We should remove accessibility ramps. They're an unfair advantage for disabled people. Exactly the point. I often talk about disabled parking. Get rid of that disabled parking because it's closer to the building. It's an advantage for the disabled people that I don't get. Therefore, it's not fair. So yeah, exactly right. All right, let's go back. Sorry,
I got one more thing. The
Yeah,
other
hands
thing
off.
that he is going to lean on, right, is the obvious pressure that our health system is under. There's not enough GPs, there's not enough nurses, there's not enough doctors. The wait times are really long. So that helps him with his message that he's aiming out there to Pākehā, that if Māori at the front of the list, then you fucking miss out. The other part of this is we need more doctors. We need more nurses. We need better hospitals. We need money for those things so no one misses out.
Mhm.
But if there's a fear that you're going to be bumped off a list because you're non-Māori, that's scary. And fear is where these guys like Seymour, that's where they live. That's where they get their votes from. Fear. That's my story.
Okay, I was just because I think this is the perfect time, as many times as we have used this, which is probably hundreds, probably, to bring up the old, what Seymour wants is he wants equality. And as you can see, quality doesn't help this poor little dude here. Whereas equity helps everyone. Even though Captain Yellowpants didn't receive anything, Chewie, Captain Yellowpants received nothing in the deal. Little boy Blue Pants actually received twice as much as little boy Green Pants. But that is what equity looks like compared to what this is, what making us all equal under the law, making us all equal. Everyone gets one box, and he thinks that's the fair outcome. That's the equal outcome. But we want to look for equity. We want to look to see what the need is for people, even if it means somebody misses out on their box.
I'd also point out that ACT voters are inside the stadium, have seen these three people looking over the fence and are calling the cops.
Yeah, it's probably true as well. Okay, let's get to the end of this conversation, because this also now turns into a beautiful sort of dance by Seymour using the word "I suspect" lots. So of course all research and stuff goes out the window now, and we get a lovely roll of David Seymour feels. I suspect, and I suspect, and I suspect.
Why your lens for grouping people in the first place was their ethnicity. You may have seen an excellent interview on Q&A on the weekend where Jason Gurney made the point that actually the social determinants of health are what cause rheumatic fever that he happened to be talking about. It's largely about housing. I suspect it's to do with rural living.
Yeah, but then this is the point. Let's say if 80% of the people getting rheumatic fever are Māori because of the social housing, then is it really so bad to deliver across the board? I thought about this today, Joey. It's the across the board, right? So if 80% of people getting rheumatic fever, I don't know the numbers, by the way, were Māori, then that's where most of the funding is going to go anyway. And it's always better use of public money, a cheaper way to do it, to do a coverall rather than means test. We've done this before for numerous things, whether it was, money being given out for COVID or whatever, but actually just giving it to everyone in that group, even the ones that didn't need it. So making doctors' visits available for everyone, even for the ones that don't go, is a much better, easier use of money. Like you were talking about GST, it's a simpler form of doing it rather than trying to figure out all the bureaucracy that you need for individual ones. It doesn't mean that the Pākehā kid down the road who's also got rheumatic fever won't also get it. Right. But it just means that you hit the area that most needs it. And so now he's going through these examples of rheumatic fever. So who is living in the poor housing? Who is getting rheumatic fever? Is it by chance Māori? I suspect it probably is in that area. So therefore, you can group it by race and saying they need the help. Yeah, there's some others on the side who need the help as well, who are Pākehā, who are Pacifica, who are Indian, who are whatever else.
So we can't look at race.
Yeah.
But we can go off learned elder David Seymour here and saying that his suspicion is that it's poor rural living and bad housing. Okay, yeah. So let's draw up the graph there of people that have poor health incomes that live in shabby homes, poor quality housing in rural areas, right? And then let's draw up a Venn diagram, one of my favorite Venn diagrams. are those people majority Māori? So are we accomplishing the same thing, or are we just shuffling the deck chair because you want to stir up racial division?
Yep.
Like, there's someone in the chat. I'm not going to highlight the comments, but there's someone in the chat going, "Yeah, well, I know Māori that lived on old age." We're talking about something that is statistically noticeable, statistically measurable over a statistically important period of time. Studies have happened for decades to generate this information that you can go, there's correlation here, there's causation here. If you can identify what the problem is, you can solve it. And then when we go in to swoop it and say, hey, look, these people have a lifetime of poor health incomes, and it could be access to medicine, it could be trust in the system, it could be their housing. Is David Seymour here advocating for a big housing project to put people in better homes? No, he's not doing that either. Like, he is just dodging every question and not holding a position, apart from the fact that somehow treating people equally is going to magically fix the statistic issues that we have with Māori population. And I'll keep repeating it. What he wants people to go is shrug their shoulders and go, it's because they're inferior.
Bad genes.
And that should make you feel yucky, New Zealand. It should fucking creep you out. Right. He's a step away from a eugenics program.
Okay, we are going to get to the end now, I promise.
It's largely about housing. I suspect it's to do with rural living, far away from medical support. I suspect that it might have something to do with diet. I suspect that smoking rates might be a factor. And the point is, John, once you drill into the practical determinants of why some people live longer than others, you can actually do something about it. Whereas if you just say, oh, it's a race thing, then first of all, that's incredibly divisive. And second of all, it doesn't actually give you practical steps you can take to solve the problem. And so you asked me, how does the treaty being interpreted as a partnership between races?
I love what he says here. He says this all the time and no one ever pushes back. Let's push back.
Disadvantage non-Māori New Zealand is actually having a society where race is your primary determinant of who a person is and what their identity is. That disadvantages all of us. And the challenge for people who oppose the treaty principles bill is to explain where in the world has dividing people and categorizing them by their ancestry and their ethnic background been a success. There are no good examples, but there's many bad examples where it's gone wrong.
Okay, you ready for this? You ready for this? Seriously, this is the easy answer. Affirmative action. Affirmative action is the answer to that question.
Is that what you meant, David? Is it?
Yeah, because he says it's not anywhere. You can't see that anywhere. In fact, I did some research on it today. I haven't bought it. I'll look it up and maybe tomorrow. And I saw an article that research says affirmative action has helped white women more than anybody. But affirmative action is something that's happened in the States, that's gone through the States, that is obviously based on someone's DNA, gets an advantage, and it's worked. So yeah, David, affirmative action. So next question. Anyone?
Seymour is excellent at weaponizing the language of his opposition. He loves turning it around. And the easy thing there is just to turn it back around on him again. Like, let's just spin like a fucking whirling dervish until he's so confused about what his actual fucking point is. But yes, he's devious. He wants you to get caught up in his debate club arguments. He doesn't live in this. He doesn't live in this space. His objective, he is not fair dealing. He is not here in good faith. No. And that is everything that I talk about when we talk about David Seymour and we talk about ACT.